Hello and welcome to an episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Friday, February 17th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. It is, in fact, Friday, February 17th here today. We are officially a week since the last football Friday of the season. This is the first non-football Friday that we've had in a very, very long time. Although we will be talking some football. We will be talking some Jets quarterback because it wouldn't be an NFL offseason if we weren't talking about the Jets quarterback situation. So we'll get into some news there. But it's interesting because baseball season is officially over. Pitchers and catchers have reported to spring training. Everybody is down in Arizona and Florida, wherever your team is set during the spring. And baseball season's upon us. 41 days away from opening day. I think we're only 7 days away. I think next week we got some baseball games on Friday, some spring training games, I believe. I think it's 7 days from today. So baseball's alive and well. Spring is in the air. It's getting closer. Baseball's in the air. You could feel it. So we shift away from the football season. Obviously, still continue hockey and basketball, but we get closer here to baseball season, which is always exciting as the 162-game marathon will start up in 41 days from now. We got a lot to get into today. Nets got a nice win the other night. Knicks as well. So they both head into the break on a high note. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting second half for the Nets. We kind of, again, it's good. I think it's good for this team. The Nets don't play until a week from today, so they'll have 9 days off. They'll have a whole nother week off until we see Nets basketball again. But I feel like that's a good thing. This team can reset, just kind of absorb everything that's happened. It's been a wild past 2-3 weeks with the Kyrie trade, the Kevin Durant trade, all the new acquisitions coming in. It's just been a wild time. So I think it's good for them to kind of reset mentally, reset physically, and come out in the second half and hopefully, play some competitive games and maybe sneak into the play-in and kind of try and what we want to see out of the second half of the season is, winning a championship is out of sight. Winning playoff games is out of sight. We probably, we could definitely make the playoffs, maybe play in, and it'll be fun to talk about a play, and it'll be fun to watch. And anytime you're in the playoffs, it's always fun, no matter what your chances are. But I think what we really want to see and what we really need to see is how this team grows. Do they continue to get better? Do they continue to play well? Do what we saw these past couple weeks? By the end of the season, are we seeing a team that's building chemistry? Are we seeing a team that's beating some of the better teams in the league? And that's ultimately what we have to look out for. And the Knicks making a strong push towards the postseason. So we'll see how it all plays out. Rangers tonight in Edmonton against the Oilers. They will continue their little Canada trip. Had a nice win the other night against Vancouver. And the Isles will welcome in Pittsburgh tonight against the Penguins. And the NBA All-Star festivities this weekend open up tonight. And all throughout tonight, tomorrow, and into Sunday with obviously the All-Star game taking place. So with all that being said, got two topics to get into today. We're going to start off with the news surrounding Derek Carr. He is expected to visit the Jets this weekend, according to Mike Garafolo of NFL Network. So not major news, but it's big news. It's storyline news. It's headline news, definitely. I think we all kind of expected this to come eventually, but the Jets are going out and looking at Carr. And again, Carr's out there. He's free for the taking. Any team right now can come in and swoop him up. Rodgers, on the other hand, he's in his darkness retreat right now. What path did the Jets take? I'll get you my thoughts on this entire quarterback situation. I also want to get into Ben Simmons. There's been an interesting take going around that Ben Simmons, if he continues to play like this, could he potentially be out of the league in the next year or two? I want to get into that and really take a dive into. I know it was a great night the other night for Mikal Bridges, but really how bad Ben Simmons has been since joining the Nets, and really why it is a very likely possibility he's not even in the NBA in 2 years' time with the way he's been playing. And it seems like his days as a Brooklyn Net are numbered. Once this season's over, he better be gone because he stinks. So I want to get into him as well and look at some numbers here on a Friday. So with all that being said, this is the Bubbs on Sports podcast, and let's get into it. So Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, the Jets quarterback rumors continue, as I mentioned, to open up the show. It wouldn't be an NFL offseason. It wouldn't be a Jets offseason if we weren't talking about the quarterback, and obviously if we weren't talking about all of this drama surrounding the quarterback. Not the good at the quarterback. We're talking about trying to find a quarterback. Every offseason, it's like a 2-year thing. It's a yearly thing where we draft a guy, then year one, it's like, this is good. We go into year two, and it's like, he's going to he's going to grow, and in year 3, it's like, we got to find a new guy. It's a 3-year process. So we have now entered another cycle. We went through with Darnold. Now we're entering it again with Zach Wilson, where we've got to find another quarterback. Hopefully, whoever we get, we're talking about them having long success with us for the next couple seasons, longer than just a couple years. Unless if you get Rodgers, he comes here and wins a Super Bowl year 1 and then leaves. That's a different story. But if you get Derek Carr, you hope he's here for 4 or 5 years, 3 at least. That's what you hope. Because we need guys that are going to come out, be reliable, play quarterback for a long time. We have a roster that can win now. We need a quarterback. Obviously, that's been the topic of conversation the entire offseason. But an interesting report came out today as Aaron Rodgers is currently on his darkness retreat, wherever he is. He's supposed to spend a couple days in darkness, although now supposedly what he said on the Pat McAfee show on Tuesday, it doesn't need to be a dark room. It's just supposed to be a quiet room where you could sit and think and process what he's going to do. Who knows what in the world's happening with Aaron Rodgers? And while that's happening, the Raiders officially cut Derek Carr a couple days ago, and he's expected to visit the New York Jets this weekend. So according to Mike Garafolo, who reported today, obviously from NFL Network, he reported earlier today surrounding Derek Carr. It said, Jets are bringing in free agent quarterback Derek Carr for a visit this weekend, sources say. It'll be the second meeting with a team for Carr, who visited the Saints prior to his release by the Raiders. So he's visited with the Saints, which they talked and stuff, and they actually agreed on trade composition, but Carr didn't really want, Carr was kind of wanted to get to the market. Raiders agreed, kind of mutually agreed, get him to the market. Carr is in the process of evaluating all options now that he's a free agent. So, again, we've talked about this a lot. You assume the Saints are obviously on his list. Jets, you just go through, the other teams in the AFC. You look at teams like the Colts could potentially be interested. Teams like the Titans could be interested. Even it seemed like maybe on the outside, a team like the Niners could be interested. You look at a team like possibly a team like the Patriots. I'm not saying they're going to go out and get them, but just naming some teams off the top of my head, that could be interested in Derek Carr. And there's obviously various teams in the NFC as well that could be looking at Derek Carr. One of those being obviously, the Saints, and then even the Panthers could be interested as well. So there's plenty of teams. There's a lot of teams this offseason that need a quarterback, and then there's also some teams like the Dolphins, like the Patriots, that they have quarterbacks, but there's questions around those guys. There's questions around Tua's health, and you have questions on if Mac Jones really is the guy or not, and do you risk bringing him into another year and him not playing that well, finishing 8-9 or 7-10 or 9-8 and missing the playoffs again? Do you risk that? Or could they go out and get another guy and have the roster around him, all that stuff? So there's a lot. Here's the thing with Derek Carr, and I've said this a lot. I like the fact that the Jets are bringing him in. I think it does tell you they're bringing him in early because they want to, visit with him. They want to talk with him. They want to try and, I think the Jets, and I get this feeling, they want to try and get this done quickly. They don't want this to last all off season. They don't want this to last all the way until late March, into April, into, near the draft. They don't want this to just be a long thing where every day there's a different report, there's a different rumor. And the fact that this is only the second team he's visiting with and the first since becoming a free agent, I think kind of tells you a little bit that there's a little sense of urgency with this Jets front office. They're visiting with him right now. He got cut a couple days ago. He's a free agent. The Jets, I think, realize this is so crucial for them to hit this quarterback. And as much as Aaron Rodgers is plan A, as much as Aaron Rodgers, if you bring him in, you're automatically a Super Bowl contender, and maybe you're not quite that with Derek Carr, the possibility, the risk-reward is really tough. Because if you wait on Rodgers, Carr goes elsewhere, and in Rodgers, you don't know what Rodgers is going to do. And I've said this as a Jet fan. I really like Derek Carr. I really think Derek Carr can do a lot of good things with us. Is he going to win a championship? It's tough to say. But is Aaron Rodgers, you truly don't know. Aaron Rodgers might come in here year one, play the entire season, go 9-8, 10-7, lose in the wild card game, and say, hey, I'm retiring the next year. Carr, there's a good chance you trust him more. You trust him being available a lot more than Rodgers. And again, there's a good chance you'll have him for about 4 or 5 seasons. I like Derek Carr a lot. I really do. And I think this shows there's a sense of urgency with the Jets. And I think the fans have to understand this. Again, I don't think it's Rodgers or bust. I've talked about this a lot, especially on my Jets podcast that I do. I don't think it's Rodgers or bust. I haven't felt that way I haven't felt that way at all. Originally, I thought it was Derek Carr. I thought originally we all thought, okay, Lamar, maybe, then Derek Carr, but it's kind of switched over the past, month or so. Every week it seems like there's a new guy. Now all of a sudden you've heard some possible talks about the Jets trading for Justin Fields. It's crazy. This is what happens. This is why, as a fan, and the Jets, I think too, they want to get this done with. While Rodgers on his darkness retreat, the Jets are bringing in a guy that they know is available. Because let's be honest, we don't even know if Rodgers is available. He might come out of his darkness retreat and say, I want to run it back with the Packers. He might come out of his darkness retreat and retire. He might come out of his darkness retreat and say, hey, I want to play football, but the Packers don't trade him to the Jets, or the Jets don't give him a good enough offer, or he doesn't want to come to the Jets. You don't know. With Carr, he's available, he's out there. If you give him the right selling points, if you give him what he wants in terms of money, in terms of pieces around him, and all that stuff, he definitely could be interested in coming here. You don't know what you're going to get out of Aaron Rodgers in terms of his decision. We don't even know when his decision's coming. He might wait another 3 weeks until he says something about his future. So the timing aspect does favor Carr in terms of playing the safe route. You're risky with going out for Rodgers. Sure, you could end up with Rodgers. That's great, but what if you don't? Then what? You're ended up with either Jimmy G, Tannehill. And I know Tannehill's not terrible, but who would you rather, Derek Carr or Tannehill? Would you rather miss out on Rodgers and then end up with Tannehill, or get Derek Carr and let Rodgers go elsewhere? Or would you rather miss out on Rodgers, or miss out on Carr and Rodgers and end up with Tannehill, or just miss out on Rodgers and end up with Carr? You have to also balance these two. If you miss out on both these guys, what if you end up with Jacoby Brissett? And then you look back on it and say, hey, we could have gave Carr that money. We could have brought Carr in. Instead, we waited for Rodgers. And I think the Jets are taking that approach of, look, we're not going to play to Rodgers' timeline. We're going to play to our timeline. We're going to do what's best for this team. Who knows when Rodgers is going to make his decision? Who knows when Rodgers makes his decision? Okay, he's also the Packers also have got to find a trade partner. Carr's available now. You don't have to give anything up for him. He's a free agent. He's out there. And with Carr, too, there's a good chance he won't be out there for very long. Rodgers probably will be, because who knows what's going to happen. But Carr, it might be next week he signs a deal. I mean, it could definitely take a little bit, but I like Carr. I really do, and I think this shows a little bit of urgency with the Jets. And why I don't think it's Rodgers or bust again, a lot of what everybody acts like Carr's this. Again, everybody acts like Carr's this quarterback. Prior to the Rodgers news starting to pick up steam, Carr was the guy for the New York Jets. And now all of a sudden, he's whatever. He's it's plan B, stinks, he's not good. Look, Rodgers is plan A, he's number one. Rodgers is B. But I think Carr's even better than option B. I mean, Carr is he's a solid quarterback. And everybody talks about all of the Raiders' struggles over the years, and they blame it all on him. He got he got the raw end of the stick in Vegas and in Oakland. He was reliable. He was out there almost every single game. He played very solid. He's been a top 12, top 15 quarterback in football for the past couple seasons. They've given him no coaching. They've given him no weapons around him that have been able to consistently stay out there. Now, I know they had Devontae Adams this year, but prior to that, they gave him nothing. All of these failed draft picks. Alex Leatherwood, one of the offensive linemen, they got him. He's gone. There's a corner they drafted, Damon Arnett. He's gone. Henry Ruggs had that awful speeding incident. He's gone. So much drama, so much off-the-field issues. Gruden with his emails that got leaked out. They fired him. And then Bisaccia rallied the team. Team believed in him. And then they got rid of Bisaccia, brought in McDaniels, who now joins a failed Belichick coaching tree that has some of the names of Joe Judge, Matt Patricia, Jim Schwartz, guys like that. They hired him. He failed this season. They've given him some of the worst defenses in football over the past couple years. I don't think he's had a defense ranked better than 25th in football in his entire career dating back to his rookie season in 2014. The Jets have a top 5 defense in football. You give Derek Carr this defense, you give Derek Carr this receiving core, you give Derek Carr pieces on the roster around him that are going to be able to stay out there and stay available, and enough of this all crazy off-the-field issues, Derek Carr can lead this team and be a very good quarterback for this team and really take this team to another level. If we get Derek Carr, this Jet team's a playoff team. We get Derek Carr, we are an 11-win team. Everybody talks about him not getting to the playoffs. I mean, a lot of that's not all on him. And the one year back in 2016, they were gonna make the playoffs, and he was having an MVP season, and then he tore his ACL or blew out his I think it was knee or had a broken leg or something. It was something bad, and he missed the playoffs. And I know last year they got there with Cincinnati, but I mean, let's be honest here. They ran into a buzzsaw in Cincinnati. They also had to go on the road against the Bengals, a team that was on fire. That Bengals team was a special group that caught fire. Obviously, they lost in the Super Bowl because the Rams were just straight out insane 2 years ago. But, yeah. And look at his receivers for that game. Look at Derek Carr's receivers. Darren Waller led the team with receiving yards. Okay, Zay Jones was second. Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, Brian Edwards, Deshaun Jackson, Jalen Richard. Those are some of the guys that got involved in the game. Now, Jacobs is good, but he's a running back. Hunter Renfrow's okay. Zay Jones is all right. But that's not Garrett Wilson. That's not Breece Hall. That's not Elijah Moore, guys like that. You surround him with that type of talent. In Vegas, he didn't have much guys around him that year. They only lost by 7 in the game against the Bengals. And I'm not trying to justify a loss, but people act like the reason they lost that game was all because of Derek Carr. It wasn't. And a lot of the failures in Vegas over the past couple seasons has not been because of Derek Carr. It's been because of the other piece around him. It's been the coaching. It's been the defense. It's been the off-the-field issues. It's been the front office. He's done his job. Now, the one thing I will say with Carr, he does have a little bit of a turnover issue. That is an issue. He's had 28 interceptions in the last 2 years. He threw 14 last season, which was tied for 30th in the NFL. He was tied with Josh Allen. That is an issue. You hope he can limit those. Turnovers are killer in games. That is an issue, and that is something that concerns you. And I'll admit, playoff game, late in the game, can you rely on him to step up and play turnover-free football? That is a little bit of a concern. But you hope, again, better receivers, overall just a better situation. You hope he can those turnovers can get out of those turnovers can get a little bit, even out a little bit. He's had 20 interceptions the last 2 years. The 2 years prior to that, 2019 and 2020, he had 17 interceptions combined. 8 in 2020, or 2019, 9 in 2020. So, again, the last 2 years with the interceptions, that's uncharacteristic for him to have 28 picks in 2 years. That's the most he's ever had in a 2-year span. Other than that, he's been he's normally an 8-9 interception per year guy, which isn't bad. 14's high. 28 in 2 years is high. Don't get me wrong. But it's everybody talking about that. I admit it's a problem, but he's shown throughout his career. I mean, in 2016, he only had 6 interceptions. In 2019, he had 8. 2020, he had 9. So last 2 years have been uncharacteristic, but to say that he can't fix that is crazy considering he's done it before in his career. So that's a concern, but I think the positive will outweigh the concerns. And everybody talking about playoff success. Look, it is an issue, and he doesn't have much playoff experience. I get that. Who knows how far that team would have went in 2016 when he was having an MVP year. But this is a guy, you look at his average season, and I know this isn't saying much considering all the Jets quarterbacks over the years have been terrible, but you look at Derek Carr's average season, it would go down as one of the best in Jets history. Is that bad? I mean, he's had 99 touchdowns in his career, 87 picks. Or I apologize. I was wrong. 217 touchdowns in his career to 99 picks. 35,225 yards. From 2018 to 2021, he had 4,000 yards in 4 straight years. He's more than capable of eclipsing 4,000 yards. He had 4,804 yards in 2021. He almost had 5,000 yards. He's reliable. I mean, he would have played every game this year if Josh McDaniels never benched him. He's played every game every season, except he missed two games. He missed the game in 2016, missed the game in 2017. He missed 2 games this year, not because of injury, because he got benched. He's reliable. Very reliable. What Carr is going to give you, he's not elite. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not elite, but he's solid. He's a lot better than a lot of people think. He's top 15. He's top 12, and he's reliable. Something that doesn't get talked about much either. The Jets haven't really had a starting quarterback go out there and play many games. They haven't. Wilson got hurt in his rookie year. Wilson got hurt again this year. Darnold had some times where he was out. Mono incident. He also had a foot injury in his rookie season. Back prior to Darnold with the days of McCown and Petty and Fitzpatrick and quarterbacks like that, there was a different quarterback every week. The Jets never have had, in a while, it's been really since Mark Sanchez and Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2015, they haven't had a quarterback consistently play, 15, 16 games for them in a season. Carr gives you that. So, I don't know. I just think I'm perfectly fine with Derek Carr. I really am. I am. Rodgers is awesome. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's won a Super Bowl. But if you want to talk about the negative, playoff success with Carr, go ahead and do that. Or talk about the negatives in the playoffs, not success, but negatives in the playoffs with Carr, go ahead and do that. Rodgers, the past couple of seasons, has lost a lot of big games in his home building. He lost the NFC Championship game to the Buccaneers in his home building, and he lost the divisional game against the Niners in his own building, in Lambeau in January. That's not good. That's not a good look. And I know he's a Hall of Famer, and again, I'm not trying to sit here and criticize Rodgers, but to the fans out there that think Rodgers is this perfect quarterback that has no issues, there are concerns with him too. There are. And there are concerns with Carr as well. Look, playoffs are a concern with Carr. Interceptions are a concern with Carr. He's not perfect. I say this all the time. That's why they're available. Because they're not perfect. Every guy, that's what happens when you swing and miss on the number 2 overall pick. So, that's just my overall feeling. But, I think this is good by the Jets. Bring him into a visit, and see where it goes. It is going to be tough for the Jets at times where the one issue with this Jet team, and another thing too, is when you look at the Jets, it is tough to sell a free agent on their team. It's tough to sell a quarterback, especially why he should want to come here. Now, you could sell him on the receivers, you could sell him on the defense, you could sell him on the running back, you could sell him on the weapons around him. Better than many other teams looking at a quarterback. I mean, the Jets have one of the better young offenses on football, minus obviously the quarterback. You put a quarterback in here, this Jets offense could definitely eclipse top 15, top 12 in football. But one of the issues with everybody is, what is Carr going to think about this coaching staff? What is he going to think about Hackett? I know he has connections with Todd Downing, but what are those connections? I know they were early in his career, and how do you really feel about Hackett? Saleh is on the hot seat. If the Jets don't make the playoffs this year, they're out. I don't care if they win 10 games and the AFC's a gauntlet and they miss out like they did back in 2015 with Fitzpatrick. They went 10-6 and missed out on playoffs. I don't care if they missed the playoffs with 10 wins. If you miss the playoffs, everybody's gone. So that's tough. It's not like you're bringing in Sean Payton and then you bring in, saying, oh, Derek Carr, come play with Sean Payton or come play for Sean Payton. That's an easy selling point. That's the one issue with the Jets that have here, which they don't have over other teams. Could that be the difference from bringing in Carr and not bringing in Carr? It's possible. Or does Carr look at what he had in Vegas and say, man, that was brutal, and say, it's not that bad here. They just need a quarterback. Does he see that side of it and say, look, I can come in here and I could change this thing. I could change the narrative around this team. I could change the narrative around the history of this franchise if I come here and do something special. I mean, let's be honest here. No matter who the quarterback is, if you come here and win a Super Bowl with the New York Jets, however long it takes, if it takes Carr his 3rd year with us to win a Super Bowl, if it takes Rodgers his 1st year, however long it takes you, if you win a Super Bowl as the quarterback of the New York Jets, it counts a whole lot more than winning a Super Bowl with any other NFL team. There are a couple, winning a Super Bowl with the Bills would be big. Winning one with the Lions would be big. Teams that, especially the Bills, 4 straight, never won one, had the long playoff drought. If you win one with the Bills, it is special. But the Jets, what makes it more special is you're in a big market, 54 years since you've won one, 54 years since you've been to one. You had 0 success the past decade. So the fact just getting to the playoffs number 1 would be insane. They haven't been there, obviously, since their sexy Rexy days where they got back-to-back seasons in the championship game. But winning one here would be amazing. I mean, winning one here would be the equivalent to like winning 3 championships with New England or something. It would be. Because winning one here would just mean so much more. I mean, it's probably like 85% of the Jets fan base didn't even witness the Super Bowl in 1969. Probably a good 85% of them. I know Joe B., great Joe Beningo from WFAN, I know he does. I know there's definitely some people out there, obviously, but the majority of people didn't witness. 1969, it's 54 years ago. So you got to at least be in your 60s, 70s, because you got to at least be probably, like 8 or 9 maybe to actually remember it. If you were 4 or 5, you probably don't remember much of it in 1969. Right? Yeah, because 69, 54 years. You'd have to be like, 65 is not crazy old, but you would have to be somewhere around there. There's a good portion of the Jets fan base that I know anyway. There's a lot of Jets fans I know that never witnessed 1969 championship. Wasn't alive back then, obviously. There's a good portion of people that didn't really remember the sack exchange either. Just haven't been much success. You come here and win one, and it'd be huge. So we'll see what the Jets do, but I feel like this is kind of a sign of maybe a little bit of a sense of urgency, and that's a good thing from the Jets. By the way, just looking at some more numbers on Carr. Last season, he was 14th in passing yards, 12th in touchdowns, tied for 30th, obviously, in interceptions, which is a problem, but he had a QBR of 14th in the league. So not bad, and something that Carr does give you over Rodgers. Rodgers might come here 1 year and leave. Carr gives you, there's a good chance he could be here 4 or 5 years. 3 probably at the least. So, you're a playoff team with Derek Carr. That's the bottom line. And once you're in, anything can happen. And am I crazy to say Derek Carr, give him receivers, give him guys? Is it crazy to say that he could potentially play up to ability of Josh Allen against him in the playoffs? I don't think that's crazy to say. I don't. I'm not acting like Derek Carr's, Tom Brady, but Josh Allen this year struggled in the postseason in his home building. He struggled. He's got a little bit of a turnover issue. I don't think it's crazy to say that. Rodgers definitely can. But, people acting like Carr, is miles away from, people act like Carr is not even close to beating any of the guys in the AFC. I don't really think it's quite accurate. That's just my opinion. But, the Jets beat the Bills with Zach Wilson. You don't think they could beat the Bills with Derek Carr? They almost beat the Bills with Mike White getting a broken rib and Joe Flacco coming in and fumbling. If Mike White doesn't get hurt, they probably beat the Bills. They almost beat the Bills. They beat the Bills with Zach Wilson, and they almost beat him with Mike White. You bring in Derek Carr, it's almost like some people act like if we bring in Derek Carr, we didn't improve. Realize what we were watching last year. I think Jets fans have gone so sucked into Rodgers. Take a step back. Realize what we had to sit through last year and how much of a difference Derek Carr would make. I think a lot of people are acting like now there's all in on Rodgers, and it's like Carr's not any good. Carr is still a very solid option. So that's how I see it. But we'll see how it all plays out. We will. So anyway, now moving on to a little basketball here on a Friday. A little football basketball Friday post Super Bowl. Crazy to think we're already a week since the Super Bowl. All of the hype, all the anticipation, all week last week. And then you got the game, and then Monday after the Super Bowl, it's always like reality sets in. It's almost like it's just like no more football. We don't have football until September. And I know you got obviously, the preseason, but meaningful games, regular season games until, a full Sunday of football you won't have until September. So it'll be a while. Obviously, as the offseason just starts. But moving on here to obviously Ben Simmons. And look, I don't want to act like I'm talking negative here about the Nets or just to talk negative. Obviously, they had a really nice win the other night against the Heat. Mikal Bridges had a huge game, 45 points, a career high. He's been really solid. It's interesting. It's an interesting time to be a Nets fan. It really is, because you have a young team that's getting better. Cam Johnson with 18 points, Mikal Bridges with 45 points, Cam Thomas with 19 points. Those are leading scorers. You have a new look. You have a different team. Obviously a team, with Claxton and guys like that. Dinwiddie, who is all right. And my issue with Dinwiddie when he was with the Nets previously was he holds on to the ball much. He's a ball hog, and he takes dumb shots. And that has come back again since he's back here. And that's one of the reasons why I was never a big Dinwiddie fan. I always thought that he just never really played to the team's strengths. I always thought he tried to kind of do it all himself, and he's just not that guy. He's not a guy that can go out there and win you a game. I'm not saying I hate Dinwiddie, but there has been some things where Dinwiddie's got to get better. And there's things that I saw when Dinwiddie was with the Nets prior. And then he's back now, and he's doing some of the same things. And it's almost like he stopped doing them in Dallas, but now he's back with the Nets, and he feels like, you know what? Like Dallas, he had Luka. He knew he didn't have to do much. But now with the Nets, it feels like in a way he needs to do so much. This Net team just needs to work together. There's some talent on this roster. There is. Not championship-level roster. That's not obviously the expectation anymore. That's not really what the Nets are setting out to do right now in terms. They just want to see what this team can do. It's tough to sit through a rebuild. It is, especially when you were sitting through one for a while. We got 3 years of championship talk, and now it's out. Now it's done with. But I have liked what I've seen so far. I think, again, with this Nets team, there's two things. You're going to get, this is the way this team's going to be. They're going to be really good defensively. Really good defensively. This is going to be one of the better defensive teams in the league. They've got a lot of depth. Offensively, they're just going to struggle at times. There's going to be times where they are losing games 103-98 because they can't score. We had an example of that against the Sixers. 101-98, they lost. They couldn't score late in the game. There's going to be times where this team goes through scoring droughts. That's just the way it is. They're going to play excellent defense. They're going to hold opponents to low scores. That's how they roll. And at the end of the day, they're not going to score a ton, but they're going to win games by defending, getting turnovers, second chance opportunities, and they do go on. They're a streaky team on offense. Solid defensively, streaky on offense. They'll go through stretches where they can go on a 12-0 run and hit a couple threes and start moving the ball, as we saw on Wednesday. But there's also times where they'll go through stretches where they don't score in 4 minutes. They'll let the other team go on a 14-0 run, and it won't even be like the other team's just scoring. It's just because the Nets are missing so many shots. And that happens in the Sixers game. But something I wanted to talk about, a specific player I wanted to get into, is Ben Simmons. 26 years old. He'll be 27 in July, so next season he'll be 27. Obviously, this is his 5th year in the league. Has had a very interesting career so far, I think we can all agree, where his first 4 years in Philly, everybody was kind of, okay, this guy, he can play really good defensively. He's not a very good, guy on offense. He doesn't score much, but he's very good. Pair him up with Joel Embiid. And then 2021-22 season hit, and I think the basketball world kind of saw what Ben Simmons really was. He sat out. He had back problems. He missed the entire season. Nets traded away Harden, got Ben Simmons in return, and ever since then, he hasn't been the same. Specifically, you can make the argument, ever since that game against the Hawks in the playoffs, where he passed up that open shot. They lost in 7 games. He passed up that open shot, and they ended up going on to lose that game. I think it was, 103-96, and everybody was crushing him. Ever since that, he hasn't been the same. And I don't know if it's just confidence. I don't know if he's just flat out not good anymore, or if this is just the player he was in the first couple years of his career, was kind of just a hot stretch. But there's been something that's been talked about over the past couple days. There's a real good possibility Ben Simmons, only 26, only in his 5th year, and got drafted early on, couple years ago, you would say he's going to play 10, 12 years in the league. There's a good possibility he might be out of the league in a year or two. Real good chance he's not with the Nets next year. And that better be the case because he is not good. He is terrible. He is not anywhere close to the player he once was. We see times where guys are obviously really good, and then they decline a little bit. And they're not great, but they're okay. You know, they're all right. They're not the same player I once was, but they're still solid, right? I try to give you some examples. It's tough. I don't know why Blake Griffin popped in my head, but I was just thinking of some other Nets players. For example, him, like in his prime, he was really, really good. I mean, he was one of the most athletic players we ever saw during his prime. Knee injuries, sidelined him for a while, wasn't the same player, but he wasn't terrible. He was never a big, he was more of a dunking guy. He had to learn to kind of adjust. Defensively, he was okay. He always he was physical. He played with a lot of energy. So he was out of his prime. He wasn't the same player, but he wasn't terrible. Ben Simmons is flat out atrocious. He's not like okay. He's not like anywhere. He's not prime, obviously. He's not, he's still all right. He's flat out bad. He's flat out terrible. That's just how it is. That's just the bottom line. You know, let's just tell like it is. He's not the same player he once was. He's not anywhere close. Where did this fall off come from? I have no clue, but he's playing worse than an NBA player right now. He really is. He's worse than an NBA player. Like, he's not even playing on an NBA level right now. He's playing below an NBA level. That's how bad he's been. To give you some numbers, the 2020-2021 season, he played 58 games. This season, he's played 42 so far. He played 32.4 minutes this season. The minutes have dropped down to 26.3, which is the least he's ever played in a season. Again, as I mentioned, some other numbers here. Free throw percentage. His career free throw percentage, okay, is 59.1. He had a 61.3 free throw percentage. 61.3 in 2020-2021, his last season with the Sixers. This year, 43.9. That's how bad he's been from the free throw line. Less rebounds offensively and defensively. Less rebounds total. Less assists. Less steals. He went from putting up, he's a career 14.7 point per game guy. This season, he's averaging 6.9 points per game. That is a 8-point drop-off from what he used to do, from what he really has, what he does throughout his career. In his career per game, he averages 8.8 rebounds. This season, he's over averaging 6.3. In his career, 7.5 assists. This season, he's only averaging 6.1. 14.7 career points per game. This season, only 6.9. In his career, he usually shoots per game in terms of field goals about 10. This season, he's shooting 5.6 times per game from the field. He doesn't shoot. He's scared to shoot. He's scared. Something with his confidence level. He's so low in confidence right now, and that's the part of it where it's like the Nets try to portray, and people try to say, oh, he's still getting back to his old self. How much longer is it going to take? We're 42 games into the season. You're getting worse. There was times early in the year where he wasn't good, and then he'd show spurts of, okay, he's all right. Maybe he's getting there. He hasn't shown you anything. And he's getting exposed even more so now than he was when Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving here, because they couldn't cover him up. He's getting the ball a lot more. He's a lot more of a focal point. I mean, let's be honest here. He's the biggest name on this team. When you ask to name a guy in the Nets right now, most likely people will probably say Ben Simmons. He's probably the biggest name on this team in terms of overall NBA. Mikal Bridges is also pretty big. Is also, pretty big name. But Simmons is the big name on this team. He stinks. He's awful. To see a drop-off from about 10 shots a game to only shooting the ball 5 times, there's times the other day against the Knicks, a specific moment in the game where he looked up at the basket, took a nice look at it, nobody around him, passes it out. Why isn't he shooting that? I can't tell you the amount of times we've seen floaters from Ben Simmons airball. The amount of times he gets the ball near the net, has an opportunity to shoot, and freezes. It's one thing to miss shots. It's another thing to stand there, look at the basket, have a wide open shot, and not shoot it. That's what we're seeing out of Ben Simmons. It's not so much he's missing shots, although that is happening. It's the fact that he's looking at the hoop, he's missing wide open, he's seeing wide open looks, he's got wide open looks, and he's not taking them. And instead he's passing it out. It's messing up the offense. It's messing up the rhythm of the team, and we're missing out on points. And he has shown no signs of breaking out of it. It's confidence at this point. When is he going to get the confidence back? It seems like never, because that's just where he's at. To see a point drop off from 14.7 career earnings per game to 6.9 this season is concerning. To see him not shoot the ball when he's got a wide open look is concerning. There's a lot of issues with Ben Simmons, and I'll tell you what, I agree. There is a really good chance he's out of the league in a year or two. He's going to, be on a different team next season. I could see a team taking a flyer on him. Again, the Nets got a lot of media attention. He's getting hit hard. Like, they're crushing him. Maybe a small market team brings him in. Hornets as an example. I'm not saying the Hornets are going to bring him in, but a small market team like that, where he can try to get some confidence back. Maybe he finds a spot on the bench as a role player, something like that. Big market could possibly be the issue, especially the fact that the Nets have not just New York media, but the national media has covered this team for a while. Now, they don't cover them nearly as much because Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving are gone, but Ben Simmons, it's bad. It's really bad, and it's getting worse, and that's concerning. They tell you he's still working through some things. They tell you he's getting better. I have seen no improvement. He's actually gotten worse. That's the problem. So, Ben Simmons has gotten better. He's got to be better. I don't think he will be, but it's one thing to push earlier in the season saying, "Oh, it's a slow start. He can make improvements as the season goes on." It's another thing halfway through the year, more than halfway through the year, into the All-Star break, where he's actually looks worse than he did earlier in the season, and still say, "Oh, he's going to get better. He's working through some things. He's going to get better. He's going to, don't worry, he'll be okay." I haven't seen any improvements. I've just seen him get worse. So, that's the problem with Ben Simmons. All right. So now we move on here to New York sports tonight. As for hockey, as I mentioned, just a couple games on tonight. Blackhawks, Senators, Isles at UBS Arena against the Penguins. You got Stars Wild and the Kings Ducks. You got Rangers Oilers tonight at Rogers Place in Edmonton. Rangers look for another win in Canada tonight. Kentucky against Tennessee tomorrow. A big game at Rupp Arena, 1 Eastern on CBS. And obviously you got all the All-Star events this weekend. I believe tonight's the Rising Stars game. Tomorrow is dunk contest, skills competition. You got all the 3-point contest, all that good stuff, and then Sunday's the game. So that should be good. Looking forward to it. I like the skills competition a lot. I like the dunk contest. I like this. I like the skills competition. The game itself, I think the new way they score it is definitely helps the level of, not defense, but the level of energy. I think, there was a time there where they just played a normal game and it was just chucking up threes. It was literally no point in defense. But it's still, very high scoring. I know some people don't love the All-Star game. Some people don't like the NBA to begin with because of the lack of defense, let alone the All-Star game. But you got that going on this weekend. Got a ton of college basketball, obviously, a ton of hockey as well. And we got to continue to see live video footage of pitchers and catchers. That's awesome. That, to me, is great. Just seeing guys throw, it just gets me so excited. Again, there's I always say this, there's different levels of excitement. Like, at first, you're excited for start of spring training, where when you just see guys throwing bullpens, it gets you pumped up. And then when the first spring training day comes, it's like, oh yeah, this is great. This is awesome. And then, like, during spring training, you get to this point where it's, like, regular season. And by the time it's, like, regular season, it's like, I'm sick of spring training. Just get me to the regular season already. It's like those different phases. We're on phase 1 right now where we're just enjoying watching the guys throw. And then next week, during the middle of next week, we're going to be like, all right, get these spring training games started. Once that starts, it's like, oh, yeah. And, like, 2 weeks into that, it's like, get me to the regular season. We go through these, obviously, the phases of getting excited for the season. So, a lot going on this weekend. First weekend without football. I know you had Pro Bowl weekend, but you had the Pro Bowl flag football game. I know they had the bye week between them, but really it's the first weekend we haven't had football since the beginning of September. So enjoy the weekend. Tons of sports on still, even without football, still a lot on. It's going to feel weird without football, definitely, but still, try to enjoy it. Try to enjoy the weekend. Basketball, NBA All-Star Weekend, NHL, tons of good stuff. So look out. A lot more content coming. As always, I will see you all back here on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.